Chapter 10. What to expect while fasting. Whether undertaken for reasons of weight reduction or general health or some special physical impairment, the fast involves certain developments which should be examined and understood. These developments are for the most part mild, particularly where the individual is fasting only to reduce weight. Let it be understood, I do not think it is possible to overemphasize the fact that the physical sensations of fasting are, for the most part, far more pleasurable than the real or illusory delights of feasting. The patient, for example, who has previously suffered from being forced to eat while he had no desire for food, is likely to feel a great sense of relief and satisfaction from the outset of the fast. Whatever the condition of the faster at the start, it is true that a fast can sometimes be somewhat uncomfortable, at least in certain of its stages. It is also true that in most cases the faster is more comfortable than when he was eating. Many can go through protracted fasting in a relaxed state with little or no discomfiture. During the fast, every abnormal sensation, every discomfort, every ache and pain is likely to be blamed upon the fast. This may be true even though, as the fast proceeds, discomfort ceases. The condition of the individual's own tissues is the chief cause of the symptoms he experiences in the beginning. As these tissues are cleansed, discomforts disappear. Most of us know something of the suffering and prostration brought on by the, quote, withdrawal symptoms, unquote, of the inebriate when he is taken off alcohol. In a parallel way, many who go on fasts have become so used to food stimulants through the years that they go through a period of depression similar to that of the inebriate deprived of his alcohol. They may become nauseous, and vomiting may occur. They may become irritable, sleepless, weak. There may be pains and aches in the body. There may be severe headache. It is not proper to call these developments, quote, withdrawal symptoms, unquote, in my opinion. It's important to know that they are evanescent or brief duration, are rarely severe. Sometimes, to avoid and to ameliorate these symptoms, the faster is given fruits. I doubt that is wise. With these foods, the fast is interrupted when the first signs of discomfort appear, and then it is resumed after 2 or 3 days of light eating of this nature. The interruption with light feeding may have to be repeated 2 or 3 times during a fast of considerable length. If this plan is resorted to, it is doubtful that the interruption saves the faster a single slight twinge of discomfort, and it is certain that it prolongs the time he has to be under observation. If the faster will grit his teeth, clench his fists, grin, and bear the evanescent discomforts until the crisis is over for the first time, there will be no reoccurrence of the symptoms. Frequently, such crisis is of extremely brief duration, no more than an hour or so. Only infrequently does it last longer than 3 to 4 days. In addition to the foregoing general developments in fasting, there are a number of specific areas where changes and developments are unusual and should be understood. Even though they present no problem or serious difficulty whatsoever, they should, as a part of the fasting routine, be discussed frankly with the experienced hygienist who is directing the fast. When one starts a fast, certain physical developments occur that almost invariably and should not cause alarm. Chief among them are the tongue coats heavily, a bad taste develops in the mouth, and breath acquires a bad odor. Teeth may become pasty. The whole complex resembles the tongue, mouth, and breath in fever. Indeed, there are fasting advocates who liken this to the depurative work of an acute illness, a fever. Disagreeable as this condition may be, it represents a cleansing process. As the body unloads its toxic burden, a process of slow clearing of the tongue begins at the tip and on the sides and gradually clearing backward and towards the middle until by the time hunger returns, the tongue and mouth are clean and the breath sweet. However light the urine may be at the beginning of the fast, It will become very dark and foul within a few hours to a day after the fast is started. It may become almost black in many cases, and the odor will be very strong. After a week or 2 weeks, depending on the condition of the faster, the urine begins to clear, becomes lighter, loses its strong odor, until by the time the hunger returns, it is normal in color and odor. The whole procedure is part of the evidence that the kidneys are engaged in the throwing out of unusual quantities of waste. Urine tests verify this fact. As purification continues, the urine returns to normal. Loss of weight that results from fasting is consequent upon the utilization of the body's reserves in nourishing the vital tissues and the excretion of toxic accumulations. This loss should be regarded as part of the process of purification, and the resulting improvement should be welcomed. The degree of unwholesomeness of the tissues helps to determine the rapidity with which the weight is lost. Loss is the greatest in the early days of the fast, fat people losing at a faster rate than thin individuals. There are, however, thin individuals who, because of the toxic state of their tissues, lose as rapidly as overweight fasters during the first few days. Losses at this stage range from 1.5 pounds a day at the start of the fast to 4 to 6 pounds in very stout individuals. After a few days of fasting, the rate of loss slackens. In the latter stages of a long fast, less than 1/4 pound a day may be lost. It is easily possible to exaggerate the importance of weight loss in any consideration of fasting. The emaciated person who remains thin on his various weight-gaining diets may be very reluctant to lose more weight, although generally after the fast he will gain weight on much less food than he has been in the habit of eating. It is an error to think that fasting is benefit only to fleshy people. The feeling of weakness sometimes experienced during a fast is due the main to functional inactivity. There is a general functional letdown as the organism takes full advantage of the preferred opportunity to rest. The heart slows, circulation slows, there is a slowing of respiration. The glands of the body reduce their activities. In general, the tired body heaves a sigh of relief and goes to bed. This is just what is needed, and proof that it is beneficial is seen by the fact that the vigor returns as the body rests and is cleansed long before food is taken. Indeed, weakness during the first few days of the fast may be nothing more significant than an absence of the accustomed stimulation. Many people undertake to fast with the mistaken idea that the cleansing processes carried on during this period are necessarily of extremely trying and disagreeable nature. This is true only in a minute percentage of cases. It is by no means the rule. On the contrary, most fasters go through even long fasts without the development of any dramatic, extraordinary crises. Most of the work of excretion is carried on without the production of troublesome crises. When a crisis does develop, it should be welcomed, as it is almost always of remedial nature. Skin eruptions rarely develop during the fast, but are definitely eliminative processes when they do occur. Giddiness, fainting, palpitation of the heart, and symptoms of this nature, though not common, should not be regarded as crises. They present no danger to the faster. Perhaps the most annoying development that occurs while a fast is in progress is that of nausea and vomiting. Not only is it a trying time while it lasts, but the faster is very weak also. Fortunately, there can be no doubt that the crisis is definitely beneficial and does not occur in more than 15% of cases. Nausea and vomiting can develop on the first day of the fast or at any time thereafter. Generally, a crisis develops after several days of abstinence. In a few instances, they develop after 4 or more weeks of fasting. What is ejected is usually a rather abnormal and watery bile with considerable mucus. The liver works overtime for a day to a few days, and much of that bile, thus turned out, is regurgitated into the stomach and is thrown out. The faster is so greatly benefited by the ordeal that he is well compensated for the discomfort. These episodes may last a day, or they may last 2, 3, or 4 days, or a week. Rarely does vomiting persist beyond a week. The faster's strength returns when vomiting ceases. If it persists for several days and water is not retained, there is some inevitable dehydration. This is a serious matter, especially in cases where vomiting lasts for several days. The possibility of breaking the fast must be considered promptly. The faster is weakened by the dehydration and the recovery of strength is slow. If there is diarrhea along with the vomiting, and this occurs very rarely, the dehydration is more severe. In such cases, if vomiting does not subside after a reasonable time, break the fast. This is not always easy, as there is a tendency to vomit the food as well as the water. In supervising some fasters, I have often tried several kinds of juice before finding one that could be retained. Diarrhea in a fast is not as common as vomiting, but it does occur occasionally. When it does develop, it may become a period of the fast even after it may come at a period of the fast even after 35 days. The discharge is composed of bile, mucus, and retained feces. This crisis is undoubtedly of a cleansing character. It may be viewed in the same light as the diarrhea that accompanies marked edema and nephritis, Bright's disease, by which much of the edematous fluid is expelled from the body. That this ever occurs in non-fasters, I am not sure, but it is a common development in fasting, a dropsical case.